Hey YouTube, Kira Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Chronomaly Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile for May 2024. The Chronomaly decks were a deck from the Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal series, which focused on the attack-changing abilities of the many different Xyz monsters that were in the set. Plenty of them being number monsters, but also being able to make use for just some of the level changing and then overlaying into the different higher-ranked monsters that we could use in the extra deck. We haven't really gotten any new support, but did want to change some of the numbers, and it's been a couple years since the last update for the Chronomaly deck, so I figured an update was definitely due. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll go ahead and start off with the main deck monsters. For our Chronomaly monsters, we're running 3 copies of Nebradisk. When it's normal summon, you can add 1 Chronomaly card from your deck to your hand, except for Nebradisk, and if this card's in your graveyard and all monsters you control are Chronomaly monsters, you can special summon this card in defense. You cannot activate card or effects during the turn you activate this, except for Chronomaly cards, and you can only use 1 Nebradisk effect per turn, and only once that turn. So most of the time you're just going to use it for the search, but then if you have the option to summon it back onto the field again as a resource, it definitely will come up, just as more of a use to get a second monster on the field for you than to use for your Xyz summons. Also 3 copies of Chronomaly Tuspa Rocket. If this card be normal or special summon, you can send 1 Chronomaly monster from your deck or extract to the graveyard, then target a face-up monster on the field. It loses attack equal to the level or rank of the monster sent times 200, and if a number exceeds monster that was summoned using this card as material gains this effect, it can make up to 2 attacks on monsters during each battle phase, and you can only use this effect of Tuspa Rocket once per turn. So just having that attack boost card means you can either boost Tuspa Rocket up a level to go into your rank 5 Xyz plays, or just use it for the number 36 Chateau Hyuk play as well. More 3-ofs, run 3 Crystal Skull Chronomaly. If you control a face-up Chronomaly monster, you can discard this card to the graveyard to add 1 Chronomaly monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand, except for Crystal Skull. The effect of Crystal Skull can only be used once per turn, but just having the search power by already setting up your level 4 Chronomaly monster, depending on which one it is, you can then just discard Crystal Skull and then grab the needed Chronomaly monster, one of them being our Chronomaly Moi. If you control a face-up Chronomaly monster, you can special summon this card from your hand in face-up defense, giving you your level 5 resource to then use for most of your rank 5 Xyz plays that you want to go for in the deck. Our last for our 3-ofs is the 3 Chronomaly Magella Globe. You can tribute this card to special summon 1 Chronomaly monster from your deck except for Magella Globe. If this card's in the graveyard except the turn was sent there, you can banish 1 Chronomaly card from your graveyard except for Magella Globe to add this card to your hand. So just using this card for more of a special summon from the deck and then giving you a recycling resource from the graveyard as well to then just be able to summon again, tribute, and then grab some of your other Chronomaly cards onto the field depending on what they want. Either your setup for your search power or your option to send cards as well, because you can use Tuspa Rocket to even just send the Magella Globe to the graveyard and then use the banish option to add it back to your hand. And then also 2 copies of Chronomaly Akambaro figures. If a Chronomaly monsters or monsters you control be destroyed by battle or card effect, your opponent's card effect, so remember that, you can discard this card instead. If it's in your graveyard, you can pay 1,000 life points to special summon this card, but return it to the hand during the end phase. If you use it for an Xyz play, you can get around that effect, but also you cannot special summon monsters when you activate this, except for Chronomaly monsters, which isn't really a lockdown in our extra deck with all the variety of Xyz monsters that we run. And also 2 copies of Chronomaly Gordian Knot. When this card's normal summon, you can special summon 1 Chronomaly monster from your hand. If you do, this card's level becomes the current level of that special summon monster. So depending on the Chronomaly monster you can summon out onto the field, you can either adjust it or go for your rank 3 Xyz play, rank 5, or your rank 4. Really running the 2 copies of Gordian Knot, though I feel that's all you need. It's just a from the hand special summon. It doesn't give you any additional plays and setups. You just mostly use it for that 1 summon. And also for the fact that it has to be normal summon to do so. With the last of our Chronomaly monsters being the 1 Golden Jet, being able to increase the levels of all Chronomaly monsters you currently control, so you can make it and your other level 4 into your rank 5 plays. And also the setup can be done if you have 2, level 5 monsters on the field to rank them up into level 6 to then be able to summon out our number 6 Chronomaly Atlantis to the field also. And the 1 copy of Chronomaly Aztec Mass Golem during your turn if you activate a Chronomaly spell card previously this turn, you can special summon this card from your hand. So it's just another special summon since we do run a good majority of Chronomaly spells in this deck to easily summon this card out. And moving on now to the spells, running 3 copies of Chronomaly Temple Trilithon. If you control no monsters or all monsters you control are Chronomaly, you can pay 500 life points immediately after this effect resolves. Normal summon 1 Chronomaly monster from your hand, so just more additional normal summon power, which definitely does help needing that monster swarm in the deck. And if a Chronomaly or number exceeds monster you control would activate an effect by detaching material, you can send this card to the graveyard instead of one of those materials, making you keep the extra exceeds materials for some of your specific Chronomaly monsters that you may summon onto the field. Is an added bonus, but we're running the 3 copies for this card, so we always have the additional normal summon option, and we do send it off for the detach power of our Chronomaly or number exceeds monsters. Also 2 copies of Chronomaly Technology for the option to target a Chronomaly monster in our graveyard, banish it, then look at the top 2 cards of our deck to add one of them to the hand, and send the other to the graveyard. You can activate Technology once per turn, so it doesn't even have to search out a Chronomaly card. You can even just search out, a generic. We just need the Chronomaly card to banish for Technology to use. And the 2 copies of Chronomaly City of Babylon. You have search power for these cards. That's why we're also just running the 2 of copies. They can be searched off of Neverdisk since they have Chronomaly in their name. With your Babylon, once per turn, you can banish a Chronomaly monster from your graveyard to target 1 Chronomaly monster in your graveyard at the same level and special summon it, giving you more of the search and setup, and why it comes in handy to have different level, but still a good majority of the same levels for the many different Chronomaly monsters that we run in the deck. They all vary together, but then can be banished and special summoned as long as we have those cards set up in the graveyard also. For the one-ofs for our Chronomaly cards, the 1 copy of the Rank Up Magic Argent Chaos Force. This is so we can go into the number C6 Chronomaly Atlantis play, and the 1 Pyramid Eye Tablet as more of a boost for our Chronomaly monsters on the field, just gaining all Chronomaly monsters you control 800 attack. For more search power in the deck, 3 copies of Pot of Prosperity, just one of the easier staples to be able to banish resources from the extract to use to search for this card. And for our one-ofs for the spells, 1 copy of Reasoning. We have a wide variety of levels just to keep our opponent guessing on what we may be able to send, and even if they do, there are some Chronomaly monsters that we just may prefer to have in the graveyard to then use later on. 1 Instant Fusion just for more rank 5 Xyz plays to summon out as resources onto the field. The 1 Monster Reborn, along with the 1 Terraforming and the 1 Call by the Grave for the last of the one-ofs for the spell lineup. And then for the traps, 2 copies of Chronomaly Esperanza Glyph. During the main phase, target 1 Xyz monster you control, or in your graveyard, special summon 2 Chronomaly monsters that are 1 level higher than that monster's rank from your hand, deck, and or graveyard, but negate their effects. Then immediately after this effect resolves, Xyz summon 1 Chronomaly Xyz monster using those 2 monsters. So just being able to target the Xyz monster we control in the graveyard, giving us those resources that are 1 level higher than that monster's rank from your hand, deck, and or graveyard, can help as more of a boosted Xyz play for our rank 4 plays to then just be able to easily go into a higher rank using this trap. And then for the extra deck, 2 copies of Chronomaly Machu Mech, or number 33. Once per turn, you can detach 1 Xyz material from this card to target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls and inflict damage to your opponent equal to the difference between its original attack and its current attack. And if you do, this card gains attack equal to the damage inflicted. So you can hit for some pretty big damage with Machu Mech if you lower the attack enough with that monster your opponent. We have some other Chronomaly monsters to also help with that play, including Chateau Hyuk, were it being able to lower it down to 0. The 2 copies of Chronomaly Vimana. Once per turn, quick effect, you can target a face-up monster on the field and 1 Xyz monster or Chronomaly monster in your graveyard. That monster on the field gains half the attack of that monster in the graveyard until the end of this turn. Then attach that monster from the graveyard to this card as material. So just being able to target a face-up monster on the field and an Xyz monster or Chronomaly in our graveyard. So having our cards like Machu Mech gain the additional attack thanks to cards like Vimana to then hit for bigger numbers into the monster's attack that we lowered. The 2 Chateau Hyuk for the lowering attack power as well for our opponent's monsters, and then also the 1 number 6 and the 1 number C6 for its rank up play, and then just the half life point play that Chronomaly Atlantis can do against our opponent, and then also just being able to make our opponent's life points 100 thanks to number C6. With the last of the Xyz monsters being 1 Chronomaly Chrononaut, more of a defensive rank 3 monster, the 1 Zenmao and the 1 Volcasaurus, along with the 1 Typhoon and the 1 Zeus for the rest of the Xyz monsters. For the non-Xyz monsters in the deck, I run the 1 Asa, the Earth Charmer, just as a way to grab more resources of our opponents to use for our Xyz plays, and the 1 Panzer Dragon for the instant fusion target as another level 5 option, since we just need some generic monsters monsters for the good majority of the monsters in the extra deck. And then as for some of the go-to plays in the deck, Xyz setup is one of your big plays to revolve around in the deck. So with that play, Nebra Disc can help to set up a good number of search and summons. When it's normal summon, you can add one Chronomaly card from your deck to your hand, except for Nebra Disc. So whether you want to go for the special summon play or just the overall setup, you can use your Nebra Disc to search out and add to your hand your Crystal Skull. Because then with this, you're just setting up more and more Chronomaly cards in your graveyard, because then you'll send the Crystal Skull to the graveyard to add a Chronomaly monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand. So then you'll have another additional search for your Chronomaly monster off of this card. And with that play, you can either go for your Chronomaly Moi for a special summon onto the field using this card, or even your Akambaro Figures for your discard option for this card as well. But with this card, what you mostly need is just the setup of your monsters onto the field for you to use as well for that summon, depending on what you use for its summon setup. You can go for your Chronomaly Moi onto the field as well, and then using that play for the initial summon of another Chronomaly monster. But this is also where Trilithon comes into play for more and more of the setup, because then you need just that one additional monster in your hand. So if you have the Trilithon, you can go for the additional summon of cards like Tuspo Rocket, sending a Chronomaly monster from your deck or extra to the graveyard. So then with this, you can set up cards like the Akambaro Figures or the Magella Globe in your graveyard as well. Then being able to banish the Chronomaly monster except for Magella Globe to add it to your hand if this card's in the graveyard except the turn it was sent there. So remember that for the reset and add back power, but still you can then use the overlay power of the two monsters to be able to summon out our number 36 to the field, then being able to detach one to make a face-up monster opponent controls, which going second in this deck I'd say is the best option to go for as well and make the attack difference, and that 0 for some of our bigger Chronomaly summons in the deck to make use of. But then also being able to have the tribute on the field for our Moi to then grab other plays, or the setup with Akambaro Figures in the graveyard to summon back and use for our rank 5 Xyz plays. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. Like I said, it's an overlooked deck since we haven't really had new support for the Chronomaly since the Dawn of Majesty booster set. But I hope you all enjoyed. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira Twig out.